Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. Okay, I have two lovely guests on the podcast today, and I'm really pleased to kind of meet them properly without lots of noise in the background, as we did in January. We had that when we met. So I've got Yin Noe and I've got Zoey Lin, and they both are head of UK and EU at the China Automotive Alliance. Thank you, both of you, and amazing to meet you again. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Liz, for having us.
So as I said, we were at EV Magazine Live, weren't we, in January, and it was really noisy, and it was quite hard to hear. But it was Johnny Berry, bless him, that introduced us, wasn't it? Do you know? And I'm talking to you guys before I've even had him on this podcast. So Johnny, if you're listening, we finally got a date in the diary, but we've also tried to speak before anyway, haven't we? But we had a few technical glitches, but that was when you were out in China. But you're back in the UK now, so again, thank you. So I'm going to read a little bit of this because you've both been doing so much. We've had a little chat before we started recording. So Yin, I'll start with you first. So you're head of UK and EU China Automotive Alliance. You're the 2021 Accelerate Her, and Google names you as one of the UK's top inspiring 50 tech leaders. That's another mouthful, isn't it, really? And you're one of the youngest winners of this. How amazing is that?
Thank you so much.
And so you've very much a kind of technical background, very entrepreneurial. I wrote that specifically because I just thought, oh, this girl's an entrepreneur for sure. Founder and CEO of Coelection, where you won a Shell Livewire Smarter Future Award. You joined the FinTech Innovation Lab cohort in 2022. How do you have time for all this? You got Techstars cohort member of 2022, and you co-founded Pennychain in 2021. Goodness me. How is that? Like I say, do you actually, I've asked somebody else this before, do you actually have time to sleep?
Sleep is something that I do compromise on, but as long as you have a passion for what you do, I think it's sort of a very easy thing to go and ride the wave, essentially.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Zoey, so you're also head of UK and EU, Yangtze River, Delta Automotive Industry China. So you worked at Mercedes in Hong Kong, and you were in marketing for McLaren. And this blew my mind. You've got a PhD in AI, artificial intelligence, and human behaviour. I mean, come on. That's such a memorable thing. I'm probably never ever going to forget that one.
Thank you. Yes, it's still in the process of finishing that, but we started working together 6 months ago with the Automotive Alliance, and I feel like a lot of my previous focus of study as well as work experience, it really some of they're transferable skills that really help us quite a lot our current duty.
I was going to say, so you also said that your family have been in automotive for 25 years in kind of Hong Kong and China, haven't they? And, so this being in this type of automotive space, I can imagine it's quite comfortable for you, hopefully.
Absolutely. I think it was very fortunate that because my family's been in the business for so long, they've established kind of like a very close bond with the OEMs, not just the traditional car manufacturers, but more and more the new up-and-coming players in the EV sphere for both passenger and commercial cars. So they are very familiarized with the pain points and their solutions for the domestic markets, and of which landed us to looking at a solution of for the overseas market, especially UK and EU, and see whether we could explore bring over more Chinese EV brands as well as their infrastructure solutions for the market here.
So I think now is a good moment to introduce the alliance.
Go for it.
So essentially, the alliance is called the Yangtze River Delta Automotive Industry Chain Alliance, and it was formed in 2018 by firstly the Shanghai, Jiangsu, Jiang, and Anhui governments, and this was closely led by Psych Motors, Geely, and Cherry Group, and now to this day there's about 500 different companies, and that includes Chinese manufacturers, battery companies, hydrogen synthetic fuels, and this also includes like startups, universities, and the whole mission of the alliance was to promote electric vehicles and new energy into the Chinese market. But because it's so competitive, now they're looking at exploring foreign markets, and this is where we come in and we take over the UK and EU space.
That's just amazing. So hang on. So it was formed in 2018. When did you both kind of start getting involved in it?
Since 6 months ago. So they've already
Right, of course.
have a couple overseas office set up in like Korea, in Middle East, Australia, I believe. So the UK and EU was a new destination that they've set their target on last year, and we were very fortunate to be elected as the head of UK and EU for the alliance.
And just having two women, young women, as head of the alliance is fantastic. I'm over the moon to see you both in that position. Is that, sorry, I mean maybe I'm slightly going off on a tangent here, but is that kind of normal? Do you normally get women heads of, kind of in automotive generally?
Very rare. I would say even in China, that's considered quite rare, especially working in the car industry. And well, which is something we're really proud of, and we're working very hard.
The alliance really saw sort of like our skill sets and our combination of our skill sets together with our experience, with our prior experience, and also us being based in the UK for almost the last Zoe 7 years, for me 10 years. So we have a lot of like strong network effects here, and this is where we got to show and prove to the alliance, and it's been a really exciting journey the last 6 months.
Absolutely, and I think for us it's more like working in between the alliance members with the OEM startups from the China side, and finding the best way to communicate the projects with our UK and EU clients here.
Do you want to, let's go a little bit further back as well. Okay. So you're obviously, you've got this, you've both, you are where you are now, but what kind of got you, obviously, I know you've just said 6 months ago you started working together, but what was it in your collective paths that brought, is it just because did you know each other when you were kind of, did you know each other when you were being in the UK, or?
We met each other through Imperial College London, and we also coincidentally also lived very close to each other. And we formed a friendship, and then essentially we shared a vision for the automotive industry. We kept a close tab on electric vehicle space and how it's such an important, like, the timing is everything. And right now with the UK new rules by 2030, by 2035, I think it's a perfect time where we basically thought, hey, why don't we decide to explore this together?
Yeah,
absolutely. And before we were involved with the alliance, we had the opportunity to meet with a lot of the major OEMs in China, and to be able to see their products as well as their charging innovation in person. It was incredibly mind-blowing. I feel like for us, it's like technologies and vehicles with the capacity that we've never seen before. And we really felt like for products like that, we can see how competitive the Chinese market is. That's kind of like forcing everyone to accelerate on the speed of innovation, and really to push out some of the most amazing
cutting edge technology to here, because it's not only cars that we try to find the market space for here, but it's also the infrastructure, which is a big problem. And China has really figured it out with the infrastructure. It's incredible, the different product offerings. Yeah.
Tell me more, because I was going to ask you about kind of, so what do you know the kind of what numbers of EVs are actually released, or what, because we know it's something about, it's only something like 17% of people who've got an EV, in the UK. What's that like, and what's the infrastructure like? So what is it that China's doing differently over there to compared to what we're doing over here?
Absolutely. I would say the EV percentage in China is around like 40% mark now, and
No,
they
is it?
yeah, exactly. And all their EVs, they put on like a green plate for their cars. And for when we were in China, it's almost like 50-50, at least in the major cities, of the amount of EVs that's on the road. And the government, they stopped giving out subsidies for EV owners a while ago, but people are still continuing the habit of purchasing EVs, and they've had very positive feedback in terms of user experience. And for their charging method, it's really like a mixture of everything. So there's AC charger, DC charger, and battery swapping stations. And now recently we've come across a company, it's a mobile robotic charger that they will be deploying at all the major Chinese airports, as well as train stations and
Shopping
EV
malls.
shopping malls, charging stations. And that's something that we would like to share with
Because that's
you.
quite new, because
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
we've never seen anywhere else, and we got to experience firsthand when we went to visit the company. And essentially, it basically solves the problem where, some areas where there's poor electricity lines, or there's not enough sort of power. It basically sort of moves where a truck comes in, drops off a little mini depot with the robot, and you can sort of essentially have it fully automatic, where the robot actually goes around and literally there's a separate device that actually takes the gun out of the charging machine and puts it in the car itself, or there's like a manual one where the person actually puts it in. And it's crazy to think that, like, it's not just normal chargers that they have in the UK that they're looking at, but it's multiple options for different people, because that's how we can integrate it to people's lives.
Yeah, but a mobile robotic charger. I just love to see this. You've got to send me a photo if you've actually taken any.
Absolutely, yeah, we have videos of it as well.
Yeah.
Really incredible to see, and it's not just a concept, because they've already widely adopted at many of the shopping malls, and they're currently on the production phase for pushing out to launch quite many more models for the airports, train stations to use, and also the battery swapping station. It was truly eye-opening for us, because normally when we think about battery swapping stations, we can think of like NIO and their passenger battery swapping station. But this time in China, we saw so many different applications for commercial vehicles, from LCVs to heavy trucks. And there's side swapping, bottom swapping, top swapping. And it's just incredible, like the range of application, how flexible they have become. And so some of the most notable products by Allan and CATL, they've really broken the exclusivity of where you used to have one OEM that's launching their battery swapping station, but only their vehicles can use the services. But now CATL, they've come up with like EvoGo, for example. So their swapping station are compatible with 80% of the BEVs that's coming onto the market in the next 3 years, which make it very accessible for a range of different clients, different applications. And yeah, no, it's truly incredible.
Yeah,
And would you like to
like the two strongest sort of use cases, or like the benefits of battery swapping, is firstly, most EV drivers have range anxiety as one of their top problems. problems.
Yeah.
And these things like Alton CATL, you can swap a battery in under a minute, which takes off the pain. And then secondly, it's the pressure on the national grid, and that's a big issue, right? When there's like tons of cars charging at the same time, it just takes up so much energy. In this case, whilst one battery is being swapped, the old one goes in and starts charging. Some of the battery swapping stations, they've done like, how many swaps can they do a day?
600 per day. And that's with around 48 batteries. And per battery swapping station, it only takes the space of 3 car park, whereas it dramatically reduces the need of installing, let's say, 50 or 100 AC DC charging needed. And it's a very clever way of doing it.
Yeah.
And especially its application for commercial vehicles, a lot of the delivery vans and stuff, and
I was
many
going to ask you, yeah.
exactly, and the taxis.
It's crazy because in the UK there's not even one single battery swapping station, but in China it's insane how, like, for example, NIO has about 1,000 stations. Alton, which is more of the legacy battery swapper, has 460 stations, and they're mostly used by taxi providers. And then CATL, they're like the new play in the market, and they have about 30 stations and more upcoming this year.
So when a commercial vehicle, so for example in the UK, say DPD, they've got electric vehicles and they've got electric vans, haven't they? So are you saying that the battery swapping station is about 3 car park spaces? Is that what you're saying that the size is? So how does that work then? So does the van drive onto it and then it swaps it? Is there somebody in charge? Is it it's completely automated and there's just like a big load of batteries there, or how does it work?
So it's a completely automated service. What they do is there's an app platform where you can find all the battery swapping stations near you. And as soon as you drive on, the entire process takes less than 1 minute for the car to drive onto the platform, and it will find like where the screws for them. So normally, let's say for a DPD van, it will be most likely bottom swapping. So the computer will be able to like sense exactly where it needs to take out the bolts and swap the batteries. There used to be for the swapping stations in China, there used to be like kind of one personnel within the station to kind of oversee the process to make sure that like everything's okay. But now it's all automated. Like the system will be able to detect, let's say, if the battery that gets swapped out has like any issues and stuff, it will be flagged up to the main control system, and people will come in and maintain and service it. And for CATL, for example, it gives like the flexible option where you can choose to lease one battery, of which provides a range of 200 kilometers, or you can rent up to 3 batteries at a time to fit in the car. That allows you to go up to 600 kilometers. So it's kind of like you can decide what's the range you want to go and how many batteries you want to get. And the swapping station itself, it has like it will equip between 20 to 60 batteries. Before, like, let's say heavy trucks, it would be slightly different because the batteries will be way larger for heavy trucks. But for normal kind of like LCVs, like and vans, it will be, I think, up to 60 battery packs, and there will be like cooling system as well as like a fire safety system within the station.
For example, the more like taxi application for battery swapping, imagine there's a very busy period and there's queues and queues of cars. So what's really interesting is that once the first car gets their battery swapped, their old battery gets taken in, by the 30th minute, that one is fully charged. So essentially, it's like, a production line where it just keeps going. No one is actually waiting. And that's a big problem with a lot of charging stations is, waiting and finding the, like, queuing up for the space and et cetera. So this is something where it's very powerful and very used quite strongly in China.
That's amazing. What is it? I'm going to ask you this. What is it about? So there's a lot of innovation about at the moment, just full stop. But what is it about Chinese innovation that just blows my mind when I hear things like that? why do you think? Cause in some ways, it feels like China's kind of, and then probably people are listening or watching, will probably say she's talking rubbish or whatever. But it just feels like China are ahead of the curve when it comes to innovation in, kind of in automotive and in charging infrastructure. Why? Why? How? Why? What is it? Is it because there's more money that you're kind of you're putting more money into the industry, into the sector, or is there something else?
I think the government has really stressed to hit a zero emission goal. And for them, once they've made that mission, they're spearheading it. They're like, okay, we're going to invest billions of dollars into adopting into infrastructure, into giving new drivers a discount on certain things. And that sort of massive adoption, it only really works when there is like a big, like what someone is running towards it. So once now that the infrastructure is in place, it becomes so much easier and kind of like a no-brainer to switch to this.
Absolutely. We can't really comment on the other industries, but at least for the electrification journey for China,
That's what I
they're
meant.
really
Yeah.
ahead of the, let's say, the target, because they're trying to solve the charging issues for the customers first, let's say both passenger and the commercial side, and then think about the innovation. So even before many of the car companies, they are launching the new models, it's the government who's really pushing for the infrastructure planning to really roll out like a mixture of all charging solutions for everyone. That's really helping the acceleration and the adoption of EV, and the way how they made it so accessible with so many different range from affordable EV to like supercar EVs at a reasonable price. It kind of really gives people a lot of confidence to switch to an EV.
And there's sort of like the freedom to innovate. We mentioned about like the different types of battery swapping that maybe only people have heard of side and bottom swapping, but there's even mobile battery swapping for emergency cases. It's like, they're really thinking about different applications and hitting different types of users at one go. And that's what makes it really powerful.
So when you say mobile battery swapping, would that be, say, like obviously the AA or the RAC would have batteries on their trucks that came up, and if you ran out of charge, they would actually come up and charge. You'd swap your battery on the move. Well, not if you've broken down, it's not on the move, but you know what I mean.
Exactly, like you said. So there will be kind of like rescue trucks with batteries equipped that's already fully charged to coming. Like let's say if the vehicle's like stuck like somewhere is very further out, the charging capacity. Yes.
So what do you think the UK needs to do? Because obviously like I say, we've got, what is it, about 17% EV adoption. If you look at what China's done and you look at what the UK's done, you'll be able to see a very, very different picture, won't you, of adoption. What do you feel that the UK needs to do in order to kind of push this forward and get more people on board?
Firstly, I think from a lot of industry players that we've been speaking to, the issue is supply. So they actually want and need EVs, but they realize that some of the manufacturers, they said, oh, we can send it to you in 6 to 12 months. Like the times are just so this is where we're trying our best to help with this kind of adoption of EVs and providing supplies from the Chinese market that not many people have explored to the fullest extent.
And also to the introduction of like different charging methods, I think would probably be an encouragement to people.
Because I mean, I suppose, and I don't know whether you have this in China. We've obviously got lamppost charging. You've got we've got static charging. I know there's a company out in the States that are looking at wireless charging. I've interviewed a kind of the chief exec of Hevo out in New York. So there's lots of different types of charging, but in some ways it doesn't quite feel a joined up approach that maybe China have got. There's a bit here and there's a bit there, and it's a bit like our government's kind of said, again, people might just disagree with me here, but it's, this is my thoughts. Government has said to local authorities, this is what we want to do. We want to achieve net zero, as well as all, but these are the areas you need to look at. One of them being EV adoption and charge points. We're going to give you some funding, but we're not going to tell you how to do it. It kind of feels a bit like that, and they're a bit like,
100%. In China, there's a very holistic approach to, when it comes to payment of charging and finding chargers. I feel like, there's a cooperation with all the different companies. And that's something that we have seen a bit of like a distance with, a lot of people using 4 different apps to pay for charge. Different apps to like, we've spoken to many different Uber drivers, for example, and they've basically mentioned how the frustration of, looking for, they have 4 different apps to look for where's the nearest charger. And once they arrive at the point, it's like someone's already went and charged it, like just swooped it. So, this is where we would love to have more cooperation with different companies in the UK and EU to help facilitate this. And only when we work in unison, it can make the whole driving experience a lot stronger and more powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's also why they've established this Automotive Alliance for specifically new energy and EV OEMs, so that there's kind of like a coherent conversation going on to see what's everyone planning to do next and whether there's homologation that could happen to really increase the user experience and to tackle the pain points for the customers.
And what? So okay, so to me, that's the biggest benefit, isn't it, of those 500 companies in that alliance? I mean, to me, that sounds a bit like herding cats, trying to get people to kind of all work together. How have you managed it? How or is it difficult to manage? Or are they all on board? They're just all on board. They all see the point of it.
I think they are very much on the same page. I think within at least the China domestic market, there's a very clear kind of understanding of where everyone's like moving to next and the innovation that's coming onto the space. And with the OEMs, they're really happy to kind of like try out and adapt in the ways where they could be collaborative, like use in the way of like going to like trials with a lot of the startups like in China. So there's quite a lot of collaborative like projects going on. And although there are at times competition is real between the OEMs like within the alliance, but then I think more and more they're looking at ways to solve the issue as a whole rather than coming up with individual solutions.
And lots of government support, which also really helps.
Yes, completely.
I mean, I've got to say, just thinking about it, I was probably a bit mean saying that. I think the UK, we are very innovative. I think we've got some very, very innovative people. So I retracted what I said earlier. I wasn't specifically saying it, across the UK. I think some of it is just, like you're saying, trying to have that joined up approach and working together as a unit, which I'm not quite sure we've reached that. We've not quite achieved that at the moment. It does feel like we're all kind of heading off in different directions. Although I have seen some kind of charge point operators who theoretically would be competitors to each other that are actually starting to look and work together, which to me, like you're saying, it's the benefit. We're all moving forward together. We all want to achieve net zero at the same time. I was going to ask you, so when will you? So obviously in the UK, we phase out petrol and diesel cars from 2030, or the manufacturing stops in 2030. When is that happening in China?
I believe around the same time. I think 2030 is the target, definitely.
But I mean, to say that you're at nearly 50% adoption, 40 to 50% adoption, I'm absolutely flabbergasted about that. And that is amazing, because the population of China at 40% adoption versus our population, I think we've got 60 billion in the UK. I don't know what the population is of China, but to say that you're there, well, congratulations on that. That's fabulous. You know, I mean, it's still got the other 50%, haven't you? But even so, that's just to say you've got so far.
Absolutely.
Fabulous.
We do need to check the stats on because we think maybe it's 40% on the major cities, but as
Right.
far as what we can see, it's definitely a very high percentage of penetration already. Yes. I think
So,
there are
so
issues with, like, let's say some of the kind of more rural cities in China where they're still in the process of like developing the infrastructure and installing chargers for everyone, but still they're moving at a very
Promising pace.
promising
Yeah.
yeah,
pace.
absolutely. So, what's your aim for the next few years, ladies? What do you guys want to achieve in the next few years?
So it's for us to bring sort of the latest technology and innovation that China has been offering and apply it to the best cases in the UK and EU. And that could mean, bringing manufacturers, bringing different infrastructure and the latest technology over here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many of the OEMs who have also asked us to look for UK and startups in this in the EV space that they would like to invest in and really take on board to see what are some of the projects that they could collaborate on and to be working with. Definitely.
Yeah, so as the Alliance, as Zoe said, they're also looking to invest in the innovative UK technology startups that are here. And that's something that, for the cooperation of all different nations, that's only going to make everything more stronger, powerful, better user experience for everybody. And all in all, going towards a more zero emission future.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm round of applause to that one. That's literally where we need to be. So, where do people need to look for you guys? Where are you? Where do you hang out other than China and the UK and mixed, kind of between the two countries?
The best way to reach out to us would be through LinkedIn. I would say that's the easiest. And then, we are easily reachable. I know that you probably have our email addresses, which you can put underneath this podcast.
Yeah, and we have a office space at St. John's Wood, so we're more than happy to have you over as well to have a look.
Bless you. That'd be fab. I want to just see. You've got to send me as many videos and photos of all this technology because
Yes,
it'd just be fabulous to see it. Really, really would. And what about other social media platforms? Then you're obviously we've kind of I've spoken to you on LinkedIn, haven't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Other platforms, we are in the midst of starting a more TikTok channel on showcasing some of the Chinese EV vehicles, and that's something that's kind of in progress, like in the works. But currently, the best way is through LinkedIn mostly. Yeah.
Fabulous. Right. Well, listen, I'll make sure that I share all of your links and everything like that. And there is so much more to talk about. I know that for a fact. So I'm sure we'll bump into each other. Are you guys going to Fully Charged?
Yes, we are.
I will see you there then. This is for those who are watching or listening, this is the week of Fully Charged live in Farnborough. So it'll probably go out a little later than Fully Charged, but yes, so I shall bump into you down there. It'd be fabulous.
Very exciting. Thank you so much, Liz, for having us.
Thank you, Liz.
Oh, it's been lovely to have you. Thank you ever so much for your time. For everybody else, I'm going to say I'll see you next time and find out more about Zoe and Yin. Thank you ever so much, ladies. I shall see you this week and I'll see everybody else next time. Bye-bye.
See you this weekend.
Bye. You've been watching Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell icon and you'll receive all of our weekly videos. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.